2. There we go. But yeah, the main thing is most people will kind of somehow in the first 30 seconds start with their beginning life story and then where they are now, but we have an hour, so no need to jump ahead. We'll start with the childhood. But other than that, do you have any questions?
No, I'm ready to go.
All right. Wonderful. We'll have a awkward pause and then we'll get going.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Alexander. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. So we'll start from earliest memories to about elementary school. What are we getting into? Way back.
Oh my gosh. So I'm a little bit of a freak. I'm a weirdo in a lot of ways. Earliest memories. So here's the funny thing. So when I was in 3rd grade, I skied all the time. I skied with my family, like nonstop. And I like to go straight down the hill and very, very fast.
One of those.
And yes, one of those. And I ended up going straight down the hill very, very fast into a grown man.
Oh, and no.
Yeah, he was fine. He was good. It was like this little 3rd grader.
Yeah.
But I was not. So I hit the guy. I fell backwards. So they tell me because I don't remember.
Yeah.
And I got a concussion. Ooh. And it was a really, really bad concussion.
Yeah.
I have no recollection of this. But I remember kind of waking up in the hospital with the scan, and of course my family memories came back. Like I knew who people were, but it actually pretty much wiped out my memories from before then. And I had to relearn. Yeah, I had to relearn a lot of writing, relearn a lot of math. And yeah, it was a crazy experience. And everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," but the thing is I can't remember, so I'm
fine. Yeah, it doesn't bother me. So
I'm good.
What was it like having to relearn those behaviors that you had lost at that point?
Honestly, it wasn't bad. I just had to do it. It's like, okay, here's this. See, that's the thing with like the memory loss. Is like if you don't remember doing it, you're fine. Yeah. I think probably, obviously, if that would have happened now, I'd be pretty pissed off. But I mean, there was such a young age of developmental learning. How far behind was I actually? So
yeah, usually there's not such big things going on at such a young age, but after that, what do we have going on? Can we play sports? Can we do other activities? What are we getting into?
Yeah. So funny enough, my family is, well, I should say my brothers and sister are very, very big into sports. And that kind of became my first love. My parents never. They liked watching maybe sports, but they weren't athletes, even though we're big people. Like I stand at like about 6 feet tall. My sister's 6'3", my brother's 6'7", and then my older brother's 5'11". Wow. So we're giant humans. Yeah, we're giant humans. We're kind of born to to play in sports. But I want to say when I was young, I got into synchronized swimming.
How does one get into synchronized swimming?
My friend, she was doing it, and it was out of a local Boys and Girls Club in the area. And I went into that, and I fell in love with it, and I ended up doing really, really well. And I kind of did that all the way through high school.
So do you have to hold your breath? Like, what's the training involved in this?
Yeah, so I would say the first half of practice is a lot of just traditional swimming. So, your laps, your sprints, your everything. And then we go into more of the artistic swimming, which I believe that's what it's been rebranded as, artistic swimming.
Okay.
And we did a lot of, breath control. So it would be sprints and then underwater, down and back, and sprints and underwater, down and back. And we do a lot of conditioning. A lot of it was conditioning. And then we would hold weights, or we'd have weights on our feet.
Yeah.
And
you gotta be in pretty good shape to do that.
I was. Keyword was. I was in really good shape. It was tough. It's like the ballerina training regimen in the water. That's probably how I can describe it. Very grueling, because I think at this point people understand that ballerinas have very, very hard intense practices.
Mhm.
That's how I would probably describe it. But
That's
I went to
wild.
Empire State Games, all that stuff.
So when you're introduced, you're kind of doing this for fun. At what point does it start becoming something serious that it's competitive?
You want to know something? That's an interesting question. I don't know if I've ever been asked that. I mean, it's interesting. It's a good question. I don't know. The truth is that I don't know when it becomes this hyper competitive thing, because I always went in and I did what I needed to do, because I knew if I did what I needed to do, I'd get out. I am very hyper competitive, but I don't believe that the competitiveness, right, comes out at a competition or at a meet.
Okay.
I believe that it's what you put in before the competition and the meet, because what you do at that competition and meet isn't going to change anything.
Right.
It's all in the preparation.
You can't exceed what you've done in practice.
Exactly. And I think people get in there and they're like, I'm going to blah, 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 blah. This is the moment, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it might be the moment if I put in the work.
Yeah.
Like it could be. And I like to come prepared.
Okay. So where did that mindset come from? Did it come from the swimming? Did it come from other sports? Where did that kind of mindset come from?
I think, honestly, I was kind of born with that mindset, to some degree. Now, that's not true. I used to be a very nervous, anxious person.
Okay.
Very nervous, very anxious. I'd freak myself out over meets, like, craziness. And then I don't know when it changed. I really couldn't tell you, but I was like, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to freak myself out. So I stopped doing it.
So what, at the times that you were nervous, what did the self-talk look like?
The self-talk. Oh my gosh, I was out of control. I was out of control. It was just like, I got to a point where I was so exhausted with myself. I was putting myself through it, that I had to make the conscious decision to not do that anymore. And not go down that rabbit hole. So as soon as you touch something that may have a slippery slope, that's it. You catch it right there. I'm big on catching thoughts and cutting them off. Like,
so what was this from a meme that we saw, a post of some sorts, a teacher that kind of suggested that, or where did we learn to kind of cut these things off?
I think, honestly, to cut things off, I mean, maybe I was looking up some Google stuff, but I also think it came from a point internally of just exhaustion with myself.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do this. This is exhausting. Like, this is terrible.
So with swimming and ballet, I know those take up a exorbitant amount of time. Did the I'm going to say it wrong, synchronized swimming, now artistic swimming, did that also take up a lot of your time, or was it a couple times a week, or what did that look like?
Yeah. So once I got into like the highly competitive, when I was in high school, it was, I think we had off Thursday and Sunday, but I wouldn't say anyone from our team was exorbitantly wealthy.
Okay.
So we would have to get pool time when we could. So it wasn't a school sport.
Okay.
But so we would be going out. I'd have to drive maybe half hour, 45 minutes with the other girls out to a town like 3 over to use their pool time. And that was often after their school team practice. So there's a lot of practice from like 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., 7:30 to 10 p.m. And then weekends were long. And then once you went into Empire State Games, I mean, then you're talking about like 8-hour practices, because then you have a very, very short window of time to kind of shape up. But it was fun, especially the Empire State Games. I'll say Empire State Games was fun. So everyone was just happy.
What does that even mean? What does Empire State Games mean?
Yeah, so I don't know if they're still going on. It was pretty much the Olympics for the state for people who are, no, actually they had masters. So I don't know where the age cutoff was, but it was the best of the best swimmers chosen from each county. So like we were like Empire State. What were we? Broome County? We were Central New York. Central New York. That's what we were considered. So it could be from any team in Central New York. So we had girls in Cortland on the team, and you were chosen. You tried out for it. It wasn't your home team. So they picked the best, and you would go from there.
So so bad joke, but how big is this pool of kids that you're picking from? Like
Yeah,
how many people are doing the artistic swimming?
that's a good question. So probably at its peak in the area, I don't know what it is now. For Empire State Games, we had three, maybe four teams that you had to choose from
Wow.
to get. Yeah, and I don't want to say it was an exorbitantly big,
Hmm.
but I mean it was a good size. I'd probably say maybe 15 from each team, with the fourth one having one or two.
Yeah.
So then you would try out.
So is there certain positions? Does everybody do everything? Is one more like a powerful swimmer? What's the rundown of the lineup there?
Yeah, so I mean each I wouldn't say there's positions like there would be for football. You kind of have to be
Okay.
an all around, but everyone had their strengths.
Hmm.
So a lot of times with the lifts, there would be positions for lifts because it was who was strongest, right?
Hmm.
And who would be the strongest one to kind of lift the swimmer up. But as far as like certain positions, you just had to be all around, really.
Okay.
When you broke into like the solo, the duets and stuff like that, that's where it was a little bit different.
Hmm.
Where it would be more artistic, and you'd want to pair with, like, if you're a powerful swimmer, a more powerful swimmer, things
Got it.
like that. But you really had to be
Yeah.
completely well-rounded with it.
That's wild. So what was the longest time that you would have to stay underwater with holding your breath?
I don't know. I really don't know. We did 75, so 75 meters before, which is down, back, down.
That's a lot.
Um, yeah, it's a lot. We did that. That was at our peak.
Whenever I go to the pool, like I can go down and back, not the big pools, like kids pools in the backyards, and I think I'm the coolest kid ever.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
wow, that's and while doing something, it's very impressive. So I focused on swimming quite a bit. So what was happening when you weren't swimming? What did we enjoy school? What was going on
Yeah.
in our life there?
Yeah, I mean, swimming was really my identity in
Okay.
so many ways, because it had to be. If you were going
Yeah.
to be putting in that much time for it
Hmm.
had to be. It really, really did. So, I mean, I had I had a social life, maybe not really. I
Yeah.
mean, most of it was my team. And when the team kind of split up and, injuries, blah, 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 blah. I mean, that was difficult. That was
Okay.
really, really hard because I was going in probably my junior or senior year, like without my comfort blanket.
Hmm.
And what was that? And I ended up being art, so I'm a really big painter now. I
Okay.
don't know if you've seen any of my stuff, but it
Hmm.
ended up being art that I kind of threw myself into,
Yeah.
because I don't like sitting around. I get bored very, very easily, and I
Yeah.
need something. I need something.
Hmm.
So ended up becoming that. And then while
So
I was in,
so
yeah.
as far as injuries go, what was it? What caused it? Was it overtraining or where the injuries come from?
It was weak hips, which are
Okay.
really common among artistic swimmers, which a lot of times people go, wait, you're a swimmer, it's supposed to be good for your hips. But we do
Hmm.
a lot of unnatural movements. So like
Right.
hyperextended splits, things like that, where you have to stretch out, and
Right.
egg beater and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that injured it, but there were other issues. I
Yeah.
mean, it was a mess.
A
It was a
lot.
messy ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while you were competing, just touch on it one more time.
Yeah.
Since you're in the pool so much doing all this, what did your nutrition look like? Because I know a lot of gymnasts and a lot of people, like, they're just trying to get in calories. We're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
What was nutrition like for you during that
Yeah.
time?
So funny enough, I've never been like, well, I guess I was as a kid, a natural thin person.
Hmm.
I've never had a metabolism that's been crazy.
Yeah.
So I had to really, really watch it. And I tell you, my probably most lean was when I was doing keto. I don't do it
Okay.
anymore, but
Yeah.
I was doing keto, and that fueled my swimming so well.
Really?
So well. Oh my gosh. It was like night and day. I
Yeah.
was jacked.
Yeah.
And that was the first time in my life I've ever been so lean.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm one of those people who like looks at a piece of pizza and gains weight. So
So
I've never had a good
what
metabolism.
was the nutrition before keto? Was it just whatever the parents put on the plate, or were you,
Yeah.
what did it look like there?
Yeah, it was whatever was around. I mean, I
Mm,
think now people are so hyper aware of nutrition, but
yeah.
before, I don't
We're-
think many people cared.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing is, before our generation, like the generation beforehand, they were just trying to get enough calories to survive. Like that was
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
the food pyramid was for, is, oh, cheap calories, all right, carbs, get them.
Yep.
A lot of people get angry with the food pyramid, but it was there for that particular time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's interesting. I didn't think about that, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, a loaf of bread is so cheap and that will sustain you for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the first things that the government did as far as food regulations or suggestions was with milk and fortifying it, because people were having issues. So I think it started there, and then they're usually a couple years behind where they need to be, but
Yeah.
they like to run their studies and take their time. So what did schooling look like for us as far as, so we're getting into art? Do we see a passion? Is there someone that we want to be like? How are we finding our path?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Again, I am very, very like self-focused.
Mm,
Like I'm gonna come into class, I'm gonna do what I need to do, and then I'm gonna leave.
okay.
Like I don't know if and that's kind of how I've always been, and that's something that's kind of kept with me, is like I don't really care what anyone else does. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't really say that I have certain people that I would look up to, maybe a few, and I have some
Yeah.
mentors that I really like now, but I still, if they're gonna tell me to turn my head right and I believe I need to go left, I'm gonna go left.
Yeah.
So I like beating my own path. But at the same time, I got this offer, and it was a really cool program through the high school. It was called Science Research. I had wonderful, wonderful teachers, and I was like,
how did you get that offer while in art class?
it wasn't in art class, it was just in school in general.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
at the same time, there was a new program, and it was done, I think, through SUNY Albany. That was like the school that handled all the credits, but ultimately it was a college level research course where students would go ahead and find mentors in the area. And since I'm from Binghamton, New York, I went to Binghamton University, and I actually knocked on the door of Professor Pete Donovic, who was incredible, who threw me to his kind of top researcher, who's now, she has her PhD, Donna Crossman, Dr. Donna Crossman. And yeah, she's incredible. She was amazing. And I kind of pitched myself and, asked her to be my mentor through a research program. So I got all my certifications, and I started studying while in high school, and then in through college, brain injury and crime severity.
Okay.
So
I feel like you got a pretty good pitch going in there.
I think a lot of it is just simply asking people.
Yeah.
I think once you ask them, they're more than willing to help you. Not always. I shouldn't say always. Most of the time, they're either going to ignore you or say yes.
Yeah.
So
you know right away.
Yeah, they're either going to ignore you or say yes. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. And who cares about the people who ignore you?
Right.
Missed opportunity for them. That's how you got to think of it.
There you go. So it sounds that you have this work ethic of, you have a goal, and it's just a time till it gets done.
Yeah.
Where do you see that? What are the questions that go through your head when deciding what to go after? And is there any self-doubt? Once again, is there self-talk that you have to like motivate yourself, or it's more so, I just do this, this, and this?
I say, I like this, I want to do this, and then I make it happen.
Okay.
Literally, that's it.
Yeah.
That is it. There's nothing else that goes into it. I think everything else is kind of just limiting beliefs and limiting thoughts. But if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to get prepared, and then I'm going to do it.
Okay.
I'll just figure it out. I'm big on, like, when I have my interns come in now, it's not about knowing things, it's about figuring it out. I'm big on the term figure it out.
So, and once again, that's just from you constantly having obstacles and just, I'm going to figure it out. Just not a lot of people always just coming to your aid, but you yourself are coming to your own aid.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think oftentimes people are great. I have great friendships, great family, but the number one person you can count on is yourself. So you're either going to show up or it's not going to happen.
Right.
So
For
yeah,
sure.
I like it. I want to do it. Let's go.
Well, there you go. So as far as the science and research stuff goes, what did you start finding? Was that a topic you wanted to go on, or that's what she was studying?
I thought, brain injury was interesting.
Okay.
I got a concussion, so maybe that was a point of interest from it. But understanding others, why do we have such a high population incarcerated? Is there something that's happening as far as a nurture standpoint, or is it something in their head, in their DNA, or some sort of injury that induced such a crime?
Right.
And I broke it down through the files, again, completely certified to do so. The different crimes, and then the number of head injury. Because I was, I think, under 18 at the time, I couldn't go into the prisons and study researchers. So it was the files in the lab, which they had thousands of people who had studied prisoners. So I used those files, and then I went through it with the help of Dr. Crossman. And put together my research. While I want to say about 67% of people had at least 1 to 3 brain injuries, there wasn't anything that was statistically significant in the sense that brain injury is induced of violent versus nonviolent crime.
Okay.
So, and it's a little fuzzy. It was a long time ago, but I ended up being, we went into a competition. I won it. I won a scholarship, and then I was runner up. Yeah.
So what does a competition look like as far as research goes?
Yeah. So it was Intel ISIF was the company that put it on. So Intel Computers did it. And it was like a scholarship program to find some like scientific minds. And I had to go in front of a panel and do kind of an oral defense of my work, and they peppered me with questions, and I won. So it was the best minds in the state.
So what made you outperform the others? Was it being prepared for the questions? Was it the way you did the research? What made you succeed over the other people there?
Well, one, it was an oral defense, so I think a lot of people kind of freeze up in those times. I don't. I thrive off of it. I like it. I like being in front of people. I like talking to people. But I put in a lot of work into my research. I was spending hours and hours in the lab. Hours. I spent years in the lab, really. And I was able to answer questions. I knew my stuff. Again, it's being prepared for a situation. For anything. Anything. I was completely prepared, and I was completely good.
So Intel, they give you the scholarship or the grant. So what's the?
Yeah, I think that one was Dr. Ying, who's a scientist. But the overarching company is Intel ISIF, and because it was like broken down into 2. Like Dr. Ying's was more so the oral defense, and then Intel ISIF was a national thing. So I was runner up. I went to Arizona, where the event was happening, which was a global competition. There were Nobel laureates. It was so cool. It was so
What was that like?
It was incredible. Oh my gosh. It was brilliant people everywhere. Everywhere. I made a lot of friends that I'm still in contact with. And it was really, really cool.
So what is the conversations like? Are they surface level, or you just get into it with when you're talking to people of such a high education or knowledge caliber?
Yeah, I like to make people laugh, because I think so many people go into it and they're asking like these scientific questions, and it's like, they're human beings. You gotta get annoyed with those sort of things. So, I can't exactly remember what the conversations were, but it was more so surface level. And I think oftentimes, if everyone's peppering you with scientific questions, you're actually going to remember the person who's not.
For sure.
But at that point too, I knew research wasn't the path that I wanted to take. So
So what about the research world kind of turned you off?
Yeah, look, it was the process. A lot of times you're alone in the lab. it was just not for me. And after that, actually, when I was in college, I was invited. Everyone who kind of won the competition was invited to the Capitol building, and we spoke in front of members of Congress with our research to kind of show off the program and the funding. So that was really cool.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but still, it just wasn't for me. I mean, that was the fun part, but all the leading up was not fun.
So
right?
just all the practice, all the studying, all the kind of being by yourself, that wasn't.
Yeah, the being by myself in a lab just was draining. I was like, it was draining.
Yeah.
But that was okay because I figured out I didn't like it, so check and move on.
Yeah.
And what I was thinking that I really loved was sports.
Okay.
So then I went ahead and I transferred to Syracuse University.
Okay.
For Falk. And I remember in kind of my interviews, they were asking what did I want to do, and because I still loved swimming at the time, it was work with Olympians. And I remember his name was Professor Veely, Mike Veely, and I remember being in the interview and he's like, well, I know the top Olympic agent. I'm like, okay, cool. And he I like to test people a little bit and poke them. When you're talking to me, it's not always going to be pleasant. But
hey, that's good. Make them uncomfortable, see how they respond.
Exactly, because I want to know what they do in situations like that. And he ended up pulling out his phone. He's like, no, look, ends up butt dialing him while we're still talking.
Perfect.
Hangs up the phone. The guy calls back saying, hey, what's going on? And I said, he said to me, like, you want to talk to him? I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to him. Grabbed the phone, pitched myself as his intern.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was put in PR. I was probably the worst intern ever because I hate doing PR. And it's just a series of crazy stuff. Like crazy stuff happened in the next couple weeks. I went out with my sister who's a volleyball player. She's a D1 volleyball player now. But she had like nationals out in like Des Moines, Iowa. We end up on our way back. We're breaking down.
You didn't sound thrilled about being in Des Moines, Iowa.
No, you ready for this? You might want to hold on to something because this is going to get crazy. We break down in Gary, Indiana, in the middle of a rest stop. No one's coming to pick us up. We're there overnight. People are knocking on our doors for money. On top of that, we finally get someone to tow the car. We're in this really horrible hotel advertising color TV and rooms by the hour. Someone tries to recruit me as a lady of the night, which there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't even think at the time I was legal. So people are trying to pull me left and right.
I'm just going to say, I don't think legality is something they're too worried about at that time.
No. And then we're there for a few more days before we can leave. So
days? Oh, because the car's not fixed.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah. So, and I can't get a hold. My computer's broken. I'm like, look, listen, I can't get you the stuff you need. I'm going to tell you this. You're not going to believe me, but it's true.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now that it's over, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
but
it's funny.
Not so much at that time.
It is so funny.
So as an intern and still in college, what are you studying in college versus what are you doing as an intern?
So Falk at the time was the #1 sport management school. So I was studying sports business.
So it's called Falk?
Yeah, Falk College. College.
All right.
Yep. And I was studying that, and then there was a whole bunch of things. I was working with the Swiss national lacrosse team on a weekend while they were up, and I
casual.
Yeah, well, I told them, my professor asked if I could wrap an ankle, and I said yes.
Absolutely.
I didn't know how to wrap an ankle.
What? You just gotta YouTube that. It's really easy.
Exactly.
You go up, down, around, and then it just use a whole roll. It's fine. If they can't move, it's great.
Yeah. Yep. So I went and I just kind of shadowed them, and but I ended up getting in a car accident that split my car in half. And it was just a series of crazy stuff. I got another concussion after that. Like, it was just a mess. So that internship was done. I was like, respectfully, I'm gonna have to bow out because it's just a series of
unfortunate
craziness, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, I needed an internship because when I was a transfer student, and I wanted to further my career. So I started looking in the area, and I'm originally from Endicott, New York, which is upstate New York, Binghamton area. And I started looking around at who the athletes were. So we have a lot of big ones like Isaiah Kazavinsky, who I don't think is in the area anymore. I think he's in Boston, Super Bowl champ. We have 2 MMA fighters who are incredible. One is John Bones Jones, so he's from the area. He's Endicott, New York, representing Endicott, New York. And then there's Tamden McCrory, the barn cat. And in kind of looking at kind of where I was and what I wanted to do, I noticed Tamden had a gym in the area. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to walk in and say, hey, like, do you need an intern? Here I am.
Right.
So I enrolled in Muay Thai classes. So Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and boxing.
Got a couple concussions. Why not? Let's find some more.
Why not add some more? Add some more, right? I probably
so at this point, we're pretty much full agent. That's our goal. No.
I was still in school. I was just trying to hustle and find some internships and make some lemonade.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I enrolled in mixed martial arts lessons to build a relationship with him. And at the time he was doing his comeback into the UFC.
Yeah.
And I helped him with his social media, and I fell in love with fighting, and I fell in love with training, and I still do it today. I've now been doing it for years.
That's awesome. So as far as helping him with his social media, how did you casually let that slip that you might be able to help him with his social media?
I told him, I said, your social media is not good. I think you need some help.
Probably true. Most, I would say, men are generally not the greatest unless they've been working on it or watching a lot of videos on it.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not good. And we work together, and he's one of my best friends in the world now, and we have a great relationship. I still go to the gym. He's fantastic and just an upstanding fighter, truly. And then after that, it was my final capstone, which is a full semester internship.
Okay.
And I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I don't want to tell anyone I was poor because I was far from it. Yeah. But it was mostly, you work and you will succeed. It was never like nothing was given to me.
Right.
So I ended up going to the city and doing my capstone at Excel Sport Management, which is one of the top sports agencies in the world. They represent some of the biggest athletes. And I kind of threw myself into the sales team, and I fell in love with sales. So I finally found what I was good at, and I got to work on some of the biggest deals. I got to work with some of the coolest athletes, meet probably one of the greatest salesmen out there, David Oxfeld.
As far as sales goes, you're selling your athletes, or you're selling who you're representing?
Yeah, so that's what it's ultimately an agent position.
Right.
A lot of times it's broken down at agencies, but that's the easiest way to kind of describe it. And, David Oxfeld was head of sales, as well as Mike Nelligan, who were the 2 most probably influential people when I started my career. Were those 2 guys, because they were just incredible.
Yeah.
I really looked up to them. I still look up to them. I gotta reach out. I haven't talked to them in a while, but they were incredible, just incredible people.
Yeah.
They were really influential.
As far as those sales go, I think that just from the small time that I've been dealing with Jessica's sponsorships and things of that nature, it seems that everyone's trying to get the best deal, either asking for way too much or way too little. Is there any animosity at the higher level stuff? Do people seem to work well together? What's the, or is it pretty cutthroat still at that level?
What do you mean?
So
cutthroat as far as what?
I got to ask that question better. As far as when you're trying to come to an agreement, either off of payment or whatever the sponsorship deal is it friendly, or is it fairly everyone's trying to just save on to that last little penny?
So, I mean, anytime you're negotiating, you want to get the best deal, and you want to get the best deal for your clients as well. So, I mean, I wouldn't say there's animosity per se, but there are elements of tension.
Yeah.
Definitely, especially if a campaign doesn't do as well as it should. I mean, it's an element of tension. I think it's probably the same, when you're dealing with these startup companies, I honestly think it's harder.
Okay.
It's harder because, they're not big corporations with insurance policies and things to rely on. You kind of handle them a little bit differently, and the deals are going to look different. So that's one of the big things. Everyone likes to think that rates are dictated by the influencer or by the agent. It's not. It's dictated by budget.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is dictated by budget, because I can ask for $8 million, but if they have $8, I'm not getting $8 million. Right. So a lot of it's dictated by the budget.
Mm-hmm. So when you say insurance policies, are there insurance policies in case a promotion doesn't go well?
No. Well, I wouldn't say that, but like as far as, a company going under or something like that, or having some nest egg in case this completely throws over the company. Mm-hmm. Like if you're doing a deal with Microsoft and the influencer campaign sucks, Microsoft has billions of dollars. Right. They're going to be fine. Yeah. But if you're dealing with kind of a mom and pop store, they're not going to be fine. Yeah. So absolutely. There's a different element to it. Mm-hmm. So for yeah. Sure.
So when you kind of took that position, what was as sales, were you more so pitching or developing sales, running slideshows, or what did that position look like for you?
Cold calls. Cold calls and research support for the sales team. Yeah. At that point. So yeah, it was a lot of cold calls, a lot of just smiling and dialing, as people like to call it.
So and then we're cold calling just any company that we're looking to see if they need an athlete or something like that. Is that kind of who we're trying to work with there?
Yeah. Ultimately pitching the athlete to that company, which is what I do now with my influencers. I'm just calling, smiling, and dialing all day long. So mm-hmm. It's the same process. It's just a lot of reach out.
Yeah. Have you noticed that there's not to give any secrets away, but have you noticed there's something that people seem to enjoy when you're talking to them that makes them interested? Do you have to talk more to what their needs are, or do you have a pretty good sale of, hey, like I can give you this kind of return, or what kind of pitch you got going in?
That's really interesting. That's an interesting question. And I think there's so much about salespeople, wanting to convince something of someone, right? And that's not really how it works, because at the end of the day, if they hate you, if they hate your client, you're not going to convince them of anything. So why are you wasting your time? I'm sure maybe you can convince them down the road, right? Yeah. But it's just not worth your time. So, I mean, if there's an inkling of interest, if there's a need that needs to be solved, so let's say brand awareness, or wanting to grow their social media, then you position it as a way where the influencer can help them do these things. They're solving the need, but you also want to make it think kind of like it's their idea too. It's like that not invented here. Okay. You want to kind of have them come to the conclusion. You're like, oh my gosh, wow, that's such a great idea. Let's do that. Because when people think it's their idea, they're more likely to do it.
So are we learning that on the job? Are we learning that from books? Where are we kind of getting that thought process?
On the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So then what from there, what is it seems like we're working out, we're doing the kickboxing and stuff like that. What are we doing outside of the job at that point?
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I moved to the city, and I kind of like, because I'm from upstate New York, I kind of I experienced so much stuff, different cultures, different things. I was living with 3 other girls, which is a whole different experience.
Sounds like a party.
From different walks of life. That was interesting. But it was just fun. It was just a really fun time, and I fell in love with the city. I fell in love with all the things you could do, and just all the cool people you could meet. I'm very much a people person. I love meeting new people. Love it. So that was really, really cool for me.
So at this time, were you focusing on anything other than your job? Was there any hobbies that you enjoyed? Was there anything else that was taking your focus other than people and then your job as well?
My job, and then I'd say training. I liked
Okay.
training. I think I had a boyfriend at the time that I met in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. He was a real piece of work. But so PSA, don't date bad guys.
Yeah.
Guys.
How do
Yeah.
you know? How do you know?
You don't know. Well, you will know. You will know. I think a lot of times you know. See, it was funny. My boss has said this before when I was on the dating scene. Now I have the best boyfriend ever. He's so wonderful.
That's a good
I'm
way
sure
to
you
describe
felt.
him.
What'd you say?
That's a good way to describe him.
Yeah,
The
and I'm
best boyfriend ever.
sure you feel the same way about your wife.
Yes.
Like you meet someone and they're wonderful, who is wonderful.
Yeah.
From what I can tell. But I think sometimes when it's not business, I may get stepped up. I may step on my oh my gosh, I can't speak. I may screw up with like the personal stuff because it's not a business setting. So that was a place that I struggled, man. I struggled big time. I am not everybody's cup of tea. I am very headstrong, and a lot of times that does not work with relationships.
So
it was a struggle of mine for quite some time.
So it seems that in the work life, you were happy with having that kind of headstrong going in your direction type of thing. Why did you, in a relationship, did you try to curb that a little bit to try to make it work? Or why do you think you weren't a huge fan of that?
I'm not sure exactly where it stepped,
Yeah.
but it was almost like if I did not secure this person and it's a horrible way to put it, right? It's hard. It's so sales lingo. If I did not secure this person in a relationship, it was a lost sale. And that's not how it works. That's not how it works in relationships. It totally is not.
Learned and we grew. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And then a lot of it too is like, I'm not a game player, but like if someone wants to call me for a deal, I pick up instantly. I'm always on my phone.
Yeah.
I have them chase you a little bit.
It's good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
So as far as training goes, did you more enjoy the grappling aspect? Did you enjoy the contacts? No, more so.
So I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu here and there.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite. I'm trying to learn more because it's great, and I think I'd be good at it as long as I get over the learning curve. But I really love Muay Thai and boxing. Okay. I really like the striking aspect. I like pad work. I like that sort of things. That's what I really like. I'm working on my jiu-jitsu.
Okay, so my wife and I, we started doing jiu-jitsu right before everything got shut down. Yeah, so we got some mats at the house and we were rolling there. But I tried to get a boxing bag the other day, and she's like, "Oh no, we'll never use it." I was like, "I was gonna get you gloves and everything." She's like, "No, I just like to roll." So she's more so. Yeah, she's more so about the rolling.
Yeah, I'm trying. I feel like I get into it and then something happens. I'm either traveling for work and then I pull it. But hopefully, maybe this year, I'll really dive into it. I mean, like I know the basics, right? But a lot of what I'm doing is muscling people. Well, I'm pretty strong, so.
And I think for her, she didn't like it at the beginning because there's a bunch of just sweaty men. And there was only a couple women there. So now it's just her and I rolling, and it gets a little bit easier because she can tell me to go shower or put deodorant on. So it's not as bad.
I mean, that is one of those things. I mean, like fighters, training fighting. I mean, we spit on the ground, we do things like that. It's kind of gross. I mean, like I've been sparring, I've gotten a bloody nose, and it's like, you stick some toilet paper in there and you keep going. Like you just go.
Let's go. So as far as working at that agency, are you still with them? Did you move?
So I was an intern with that agency. I was an intern with that agency. That was my capstone. And then following that, I did modeling because I'm 6 feet tall in the city. Yeah, someone saw me up here and.
Sounds like a movie right there. So were you walking down the street? Were you in the bar and some gentleman walks up to you, or?
I had a wonderful photographer, Julia Rabkin, who just who is just so talented, a great photographer, is everything. It truly is. And we worked together, and then a mother agent saw me, and then someone actually local, his name is James, saw me, who was working with a New York Fashion Week designer. Okay. So I walked in New York Fashion Week that September. But
I feel like that's like, we're not doing any casual shows. Like, we don't lead up to things. We're just like, oh, we're gonna work with the top Olympians. Oh, we're gonna work with the UFC guys.
So because you can. That's the thing. You don't have to take baby steps. I'm not big on baby steps. I don't like baby steps. Just go. Just go.
So did you have to learn how to walk? What was?
I watched a lot of YouTube videos.
Okay.
So
all I know is you got to walk one foot in front of the other. Is that pretty close? No?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much. Each show is a little bit different, but yeah, Jeanette Lemas was the designer I walked for. She was incredible. And, you know, at that point, I saw some people getting ahead of me in my career in the sports sector. And I was doing some work on LinkedIn, ran into the Yankees manager, sent him a DM. And, you know, shortly after that, I was brought on as a junior sales associate at the New York Yankees. So
no small steps.
No small steps. But again, it's just about going again. I think everyone's like, let's start small.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's not.
What are you doing for the Yankees? Well, like,
sales.
So I had a buddy that worked for the LA Galaxy. So are you just selling tickets? Like, what is sales?
Tickets, suites. It's season tickets, so it's not like one-offs. They're big investments. They're big investments. Suites and group packages for corporations and things like that, or small groups. You could do that too. But yeah, I did a lot of work there. But you know, entry level into sports is tough. Sports and entertainment. And I had to work like 2 other jobs. So I didn't tell you before, but I was a maid to be able to support myself through college. And then on top of that, when I took the job at the Yankees, the junior sales associate job, it was Monday through Thursday. And I was in the city, and the city's not cheap. So every day at around 4:00 in the morning, I'd wake up and I'd teach English to kids in China through VIP Kid. And that was the way I supported myself for additional income. And did a bunch of stuff every single morning. Fridays I was doing work, and luckily I was very good at my job. Yeah. And I got promoted to inside sales really, really quickly, which is full-time, great position.
So
and was selling.
How much of a fan of caffeine are you?
So I love coffee. Okay. I love coffee. I love tea. Got it. Which I think I'm going to start putting more on my social, because I'm a huge fan of tea. Okay. At one point in my life, I sold tea. But, you know, caffeine kind of makes me too crazy. So I got to watch myself. But yeah.
When you talk mental health, I know that I have a buddy that's working on 3rd shift right now, and it's probably been about a year, and he's finally possibly making the 1st shift, and he's like, hey, I had 2 days off, or like 3 days off around the holidays, and he felt amazing because he was actually sleeping and whatnot. What would you say your mental health was while you were waking up at 4 a.m.? How were you able to push through and whatnot?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question. You know, the mental health aspect, I think a lot of times goes, still to this day, is so taboo for people to talk about. And I did struggle with anxiety. To this day, I wouldn't say as much now, but I struggled with anxiety, definitely anxious. And a lot of that was, you know, I want to be the best. I want to be the best. I want to be the best. Right. Why am I sleeping? Why am I not working? Things like that, which is, well, it's like one of those things, like it's somewhat, you're either going to be the best at what you do, or someone's outworking you. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of thinking, you know, people do get lucky with kind of how they are and have a natural gift, but I do believe hard work can out hustle them. So yeah.
Well, so at what point did you make a change, or how were you able to combat the less sleep? Were you doing meditation, journaling? How were you kind of reining that in?
I started doing yoga, but a lot of times, you know, my parents brought it up. My parents brought it up, like, you need to stop, like, you need to slow down, like, calm down, sort of deals. And they were right.
Mm-hmm.
They were right. So more training, the more active I was, the more time I spent just for me, because my training's for me.
Yes.
The happier I was, honestly. Yeah. And that Muay Thai, MMA, that is what really, really helped me.
Mm-hmm.
Really
Absolutely. And I know you have a hard out, so I'll finish off with the two questions everyone gets. But as far as we're on that health topic, what is your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what do you strive for as far as health goes?
You know, I think kind of what we were talking about, my big thing I want to say in 2021 is mental health. You know, get to a point where you're reducing stress, because the effects of stress on your life are terrible. They're terrible. Yeah. They're horrible. You die an earlier death. You don't perform as well. So for me this year, it's about reducing stress. So it's finding time to paint. You know, I have a wonderful client roster now. I'm the VP of the Digital Renegades, and my roster stretches about 100 million. Yeah. I have people like That Dude Can Cook, Phantom Tory, Jen Selter, who has a multi-million-dollar brand. They're great. And I have my corporate clients as well. I do a lot of work with NAMI, the Beef Checkoff. I work with Trophia Agency, which is Smithfield Foods and things like that. And, you know, the big thing for me is finding time, or making time really, to get my workout in, and to find time where I am not doing anything, or I'm painting, or doing something like that, and more family time. Because the truth is I can go at this pace. I can go at that pace, right, but I'm going to get run down. And, you know, if you're not enjoying life as it's happening, what good is it? It took me a while to get there, though. It really did.
Hey, that's good. And then the last question, what is something from your life that you think someone listening to can benefit from?
You know, I think there's a bunch of things. I think it's putting yourself in a place to succeed and doing anything to get there. So when I was in New York, I was cleaning houses. I was teaching English at 4 o'clock in the morning. I put myself in that position. I was not given that position. I did not have connections in sports. Right. I didn't have those connections at all. There's no reason why you can't achieve, but you got to be willing to do the work. And ultimately stop dreaming about something and start doing. Yeah. That's a big thing. Figure it out. You know, you can do whatever you want to do, but you have to be willing to put in the work.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I love that. And thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. We'll have to do a part 2 of how we went from there to where I am. But
absolutely.
But thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.